Hello, everybody. I'm Frederick. I'm the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs here at UC Berkeley Global, and I'm super excited to welcome everybody. We have people from around the world tuning in, so greetings to you all. It's very exciting to welcome you to our sixth episode or edition of our CNAM Berkeley Horizons discussion panels. This is our first for this year, so happy new 2021 to everybody in the hopes that everything will be better than 2020 and we can quickly move on from this weird year we had last year. But there's still some things that changed very fundamentally last year. And I'm very happy to be with a fantastic panel today. And notably also again with our colleague Jean-Michel from the CNAM to discuss about online higher education and how this is going to impact or change. Jean-Michel?
Thank you, Frederick. So hello to everybody. So I should say good morning, good evening. I'm Jean-Michel Rakovic. I'm Chair Marketing Professor at CNAM. And as mentioned by Frederick, I'm very pleased to be with you and sharing this session with new friends, I would say. As mentioned by Frederick, the world is facing many challenges and we are in a global complex situation. We've been working and trying to develop partnership with Berkeley for our MBA program, organizing a study trip, working on project management, trying to develop study trip from US students to Paris. Everything is a bit jeopardized, I would say, by COVID. So we keep the project, and then beginning of last year, when the first lockdown took place, we took that as an opportunity to build up those discussions between, I would say, US academic and professional, European academic and professional. So as mentioned by Frederick, this is the sixth edition. Previously, we've been discussing about, I would say, marketing, chaos management, strategy, innovation, agile management. And our discussion of today will be about evolution of higher education. We've got two new friends, two new panelists. So maybe you can present yourself and then we will jump into discussion. Sharon?
Thank you. I'm Sharon Doyle. I'm the Assistant Dean at UC Berkeley Global. I'm really excited to be here today. I've been at Berkeley since 2012. I first started there running a science department that had a lot of traditional classes, but also online courses. And that's where my personal interest in online education began. We've obviously learned a lot in the last year. And so I think this is a really timely discussion on how we're all planning to move forward. So again, just very excited to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Dorel?
Good evening. I'm Dorel Paraschiv, Vice Provost for Business Environment and Student Life in Bucharest University of Economic Studies, the biggest university in business and economics, public administration in Central and Eastern Europe. And I am also Associate Professor in different years in World Bank Institute, Wirtschaft Universität Wien, Paris Business School, and CNAM Paris.
Thank you, Dorel. Frederick, at this stage you are due to ask me a question, isn't it?
Thank you all for being here with us. Well, we thought we'd kick it off as it is 2021 with the perspective on the positive. So why not start right now and think about online education and think about the positive opportunities that we are actually looking at. And because we have one of these key elements in this partnership is this discussion across the Atlantic. So Jean-Michel, what would be your opportunities that you see for online education after COVID from a Western European perspective?
Thank you. As you mentioned, we're trying to have a, let's say, new perspective, and this is the aim of this type of discussion when we started with once again chaos strategy. So now if we look at our industry, the global industry, higher education, I would say if we step back and look at it like an industry, our business environment is drastically changing, I would say. Our, let's say, audience, the student profile are also changing, I would say, very fast, including because of COVID. On the French market, European market, we have a lot of pressure to make sure that what you learn is useful for your work. It's not only education, it's also you're working on your employability, I would say. Your ability to jump to find your first job and later on to stay in play when working. And the environment is very fast changing. MOOCs have been impacting the environment. Online videos, access to content is all over the place. And even, let's say, from an employee point of view, and maybe from a company point of view, you don't look at the resume the same way. You don't look at only your academic degree. You look at what is your career path and what are the different, let's say, knowledge acquisition you had or you're forecasting throughout your work. So your resume looks very different, and you know from scratch that you will go back to school. So this is a great opportunity for online education because your foundation will be your let's say first school, first university or first institution, but you will go back to school and you will have opportunity to go not only to academic institution, a Google certificate or LinkedIn certificate sounds very good if you're doing marketing. So I would say the audience is changing, the distribution of our business is changing, and of course now the content, the core business is changing also, because we've got to adapt our let's say education or what we let's say our service to the new audience. And just like in other industry, the development of the brand will be bigger. The student, what you call the student experience, from let's say the recruitment to what you experience during your stay at the school and your alumni experience will be different. So I would say the big change, big opportunity to adapt in this environment. In France, there is a strong, let's say, relationship or battle between public, private, between universities and what we call grandes écoles. So the game is very, I would say, open, and there are many opportunities. But one common point, and I'm going to be brief, one common point is that we go for international connection. And many European students have been educated using Erasmus opportunities, traveling through European country and broadly discovering the world. So it will remain this will to go. As soon as we can travel again, as soon as we can connect again, there will be opportunities to go back to international connection. On the French market, the state is very influencing this business. The ability to finance your studies is there, and there are many ways now that you go back to school using let's say the funding that you made out of your work experience. Opportunities for education we'll talk later on, and I would say then I will stop on my first intro that it's a great opportunity for new business models. Opportunity for new learning, opportunity for new educational experience. So let's be optimistic and jump into the future, isn't it?
What do you think from the US perspective, Sharon, in terms of opportunities for online education?
I think there's a lot of room for growth, and I think it's really exciting because even though there was a lot of online education in the US prior to 2020 and it was working well, there was a lot of hesitancy on the side of students and instructors. And in March of 2020, we were all forced to go online. And I think that opened a lot of eyes to the fact that this can work. And I know in the US, we were really excited about seeing how creative our instructors were and how much they collaborated together to work through spring 2020, which was just a very tough situation for so many people. And we learned there are new ways to deliver online education that works for a broader group of students. And we want to now look at how that's been used not only through spring, but summer and fall of 2020 and move forward. Again, I think what this will lead to is an increase of format options in the future. It won't just be in person or one type of online course. There's now going to be many different things. We've learned new ways of delivering the content. We've learned new tools and technologies. And I think we're just starting to really see the potential.
Thank you. Dora, what do you think from Eastern Europe perspective? What are the opportunities that you're seeing?
So, in my university and in my country, in Romania, it was a huge push in March 2020 to move from face-to-face courses to online courses. Hopefully, we developed previously a platform for helping us because we had some courses delivered already in hybrid module, but it forced us to change our way of teaching from one day to another and to implement new teaching methods in a very short delay, just because the big picture of higher education changed completely when the COVID arrived in Romania. So it was a decision to go 100% online, and we moved all our courses online using existing platforms we developed within the university, but also already consecrated platforms such Zoom and Google Meet. This change in university landscape was overposing with need we had to adapt our academic curricula to business environment and to offer courses which are requested by the market. And we work with our advisory board in order to adapt our educational offer to what the company needs. So in fact, what we try to develop, we develop a totally different new learning experience for our student. All the courses were delivered mainly online, and the decision is still going on. For this semester, we also offer them courses online. But it's a discussion what will happen after this pandemic, because we think that we should have a hybrid model in front of us. So this is from Bucharest University of Economic Studies perspective, but also it's a big picture for Romania because all the universities took the same decision from one day to another, Frederic.
It's actually very interesting because I'm thinking a lot about the kind of even international perspective. I was very engaged in international partnerships, obviously, over the last years, or anything before COVID hit. And with the new kind of opportunities that you also just described in online, what struck me perspective is the perspective of the student. Is if I'm a student anywhere in the world now, I can either go to my local institution because that's where classes are offered, but at the same time, I can also now go and go to any type of institution in the world. I really like the choice for me is totally open as long as I'm able to converse or speak in the language that whatever the classes are delivered in. So it's interesting from an international perspective. For the student, the choice is much larger now. And I think the key difference is what you just described, Doral, is actually that the companies themselves have changed their perspectives on education. They have maybe looked closer at it and actually realized in many cases that you can be and become very proficient when you learn online. It doesn't mean that you have a lesser education or lesser degree. It is very much the same. So if that's the case, the companies accept it. We have seen grad schools accept online education fully. So if degrees and certifications are now fully accepted, even if they're delivered online, it's a fantastic opportunity for students worldwide. And for us as institutions, it makes us kind of think of, okay, so how do we need to continue working forward? Because suddenly we are competing not just regionally, locally, we're really competing, quote unquote, globally. And that's why I think actually our collaboration with our institutions here is very interesting, because it means we are maybe ahead of this already. We're not thinking about competing against each other, but maybe seeing how we can collaborate even more effectively together. So
fully agree with you, Frederic, especially when what we noticed throughout those discussions is that the company, the business environment is fast changing. So education has to adapt very quickly in order to fit to, let's say, the new needs and so on. And as you mentioned, it might be an opportunity for us. At the same time, quite a lot of challenges, I would say.
yeah, actually, maybe you want to jump in. What are the challenges you think we are facing? Maybe a question to all of us. Now that we talked about all the opportunities, it's not all a given. What do you think are the main challenges from your perspective that we are facing? Jean-Michel, do you want to?
We're going to find the new tempo, I would say, because as you mentioned, we were forced to react very quickly. And as mentioned by Dorel, my institution, CNAM, went 100% online, and we found ways to organize the courses, to take the exam, to recruit online. So we've seen that it was, let's say, a big change. But now we've got to find what is the new balance. What is the new, we mentioned that very frequently, what is the new normal? And then it's kind of a change management topic on how do we adapt all our courses, not only for temporary change, but for an ongoing situation. And this is what we are designing right now. And that's why it's interesting to discuss also with other institutions, because we don't have all the same point of view. Some professors would rather go back to, let's say, traditional face-to-face, and others would jump into 100% online. And as mentioned by Dorel previously, we are debating about what is the new normal, and we'll come back to the educational topic later on. But definitely, the challenge is how do we adapt? How do we adapt from a teaching point of view, from let's say a back office point of view, if we take let's say a traditional approach? How do we build up our partnership a bit differently? And the challenge is also to keep what we discussed or when preparing this session, but we can all react on this topic. How do we remain human when we educate? Not only to have an online experience, but to have a transmission experience, blending soft skills and knowledge, and many challenges. So in this case, who wants to react?
Sorry, I was just going to add, I think we also have to realize that while there are lots of best practices and a lot of instructors rose to the challenge, we need to continue to support instructors. All the instructors, you know, it really was a difficult pivot for people. And if we can provide the right resources, then we will have high quality across the board. And I think that's going to be critical with the partnerships as well. And sharing best practices between the different partners so that students have a similar experience. Another thing, you know, sometimes students have different experiences with what their expectations of an online class are in terms of the material, as well as what they need to put into it. And I think that is evolving and something that needs to be standardized. And then the last thing I wanted to point out is just, I think we all need to give pause and think about, you know, the fact that we're providing more access, but there are still barriers for people. And I think we should be really cognizant of that. Not everyone has an internet access, a computer, and a private place to study. And as we are really excited about all these opportunities, if there are ways that we can continue to bring everyone into the fold, I think we'll be better off.
In Romania and in our university, in view or analyzing these aspects, we started a project called Restart Romania to get closer to the business environment. And we discovered that companies are now trying to relocate their production to do some nearshoring instead of offshoring to shorten their supply chain. So we quickly adapt and introduce new topic in our curriculum, especially in international business, especially in supply chain, in order to help also our partners and our companies, our partners in business, to also to have, let's say, an easier adaptation to the new business model. So in fact, our biggest challenge is on the one way, due to the fact that we have to reinvent the business model for the university, and this business model should be also adapted to the business environment, to our partners. So in fact, the picture, it's more complicated, because on the one side we have the students with their experience and learning experience, and on the other hand we have our partners with their needs. So this is, let's say, the role of our executive board and our advisory board to define the best strategy and to adapt our academic offer in order to fulfill these needs. So this is why we consider that this period is unique. It's a period that we didn't have in 20s, 30s, or in other periods when we had such economic crisis. And this crisis gives us the opportunity to reshape our business model and to reshape our offer to get closer to our partners, and to maintain and to have a stronger relationship with our partners, also foreign partners in international relations, to develop common products. So in fact, it's full of challenges from the university perspective.
It's actually quite interesting. We had similar effects, or I mean, we see it with our partnership, is that actually the online has brought people closer together, because if everybody is in the groove of having meetings all day, basically through Zoom or other platforms, you can interact very quickly. So it actually has in some ways enhanced maybe the potential of collaboration compared to before, where we thought we have to meet in person. One quick follow-up to this type of topic of challenges that I wanted to make, because I'm looking at the questions in the Q&A, and there were two questions that were asking like a thing that's really tough for all, I think, higher education institutions that have a lot of, let's say, physical real estate, is about the tuition fees. The fact, I mean, you know, the US is leading the world in terms of student debt. There are tuition fees in many programs. Sometimes the governments carry, but it's a lot of money. Even if the the state is paying for students, the money comes from the taxpayers. So education is pretty expensive, and there is this understanding, or seeming understanding, I think, from the student side and the public side, that if it's online now, it should be cheaper. So I don't know if I think that's an interesting thing for you, if you could react to that, that challenge of people perceiving it should be cheaper, but seemingly it's not.
This is, I would say, this is part of the discussion we are having right now. How do we adapt our, I would say, our pricing? How do we adapt the content of our courses in order to, as mentioned previously, to reshape part of our business model? I'm very aligned with what we said previously, that we need to be agile. This is more or less the finding, also the findings of our previous session. Our, I would say, our audience, the business environment is changing, so we've got to adapt very quickly, and the format of what we'll deliver won't be the same. So it's really a great opportunity, I would say, from a let's say a development standpoint, to revisit what we are let's say proposing to our future students and to our partners and so on. And this is the discussion which is taking place right now. And it's once again, it's an opportunity. But of course, we'll come to the topic of the institution later on. Are we agile enough for the new environment? And this is certainly a big topic we are facing right now.
Yes, I would add, for cost. In my experience, it's not less expensive to run an online course. In many cases, it's more. There's a lot of technology that goes into creating animations and things other than just lecturing students. And so I think maybe the more students take online courses, they realize that there's more involved, and that will be less of a challenge. I don't think it's less. I think it's different. In some cases, it's more. But I think from the student perspective, they're not commuting, they don't have to move, so there are other types of savings that they should consider when thinking about the cost of online.
Yeah, correct. And we'll see also, they will see the benefits, I would say, because you don't have to cross the city and to commute and so on, because you plug and you're part of the game. And also, we talk about opportunities for, let's say, content, but inviting people from the business environment is very easy. You ask them to be part of the course, and they can share their experience, their testimony, and so on. This is the same for, let's say, the defense. When you've got a final presentation at the MBA level, the tutor will be there, the academic jury will be there, but let's say, the mentor in the company can take part to the discussion, and then we can have, let's say, another more meaningful usage of our, let's say, contact hours, and students definitely can benefit from it. I really agree.
In Romania, being a state-owned university founded in 1913, we have most of our students who do not pay taxes. We charge only a few of them. So the problem of, let's say, taxes is not a key issue in our university. However, we do huge investment in digitalization and in creating new teaching tools in order to help, because these new methods of teaching, mainly online, need a lot of resources and need a lot of movies, a lot of animation, a lot of background preparation before coming in front of our students. So in our long-term perspective, the investments are especially done in digitalization and in investing in digital learning products and films and animation. So this is, let's say, a new optic the pandemic brought in our vision, to have more and more digital tools to help us for our teaching.
So basically, the thing is, at the end of the day, the online is not really cheaper. It has different costs. It is not cheaper than producing things in person. And on top of it, I mean, I guess you alluded to your institution being very established. It's not like many institutions can just get rid of their real estate. We're not just going to sell all our buildings and stop teaching in classroom as well. So effectively, I think maybe there's an opportunity going forward to, how to say, use the online format if there are any more cost-effective ways of educating, to do that in addition to what we're doing already. And I think actually there were attempts with edX, Coursera, and similar examples where there was a move towards, can we do something more cost efficient? To be honest, one thing that I observed since COVID is that a lot of what we tried to do in terms of low cost, very accessible, was also not, how to say, that attractive for learners as is, for example, a live online course, or a very well developed asynchronous course, as you were just describing, Doral, with a high media production and so on. So at the end of the day, it's to the questions that the audience asked, it's not really looking good in terms of just being cheaper and online equals cheap. At the end of the day, maybe that's also not so bad, because that might have been one of the reasons why corporations and grad schools and so on realize that online education is not subpar. It's not lesser than the in-person education. If we think about maybe that specifically, sorry, you wanted to?
Yeah, I'm just jumping into reacting to your comment. When preparing this meeting, we already had the discussion about what would be the new normal and what would be, let's say, the new balance and so on. My perception is that it's a bit early to fully know what will be the future, but we are in the transition phase. And what we know is that definitely we are looking for balance. we are looking for balance, because when I look at the picture behind you about the, let's say, Berkeley campus, I wish, I will, I feel like going there and enjoying, let's say, a lovely experience in California. This is the same for us at CNAM. Our foreign students, when they come to France, they want to have an experience outside of their own environment. So they are willing to pay for something which is, let's say, accessible, affordable, online up to a certain extent, but with a proper balance in terms of experience, added value. So this is under construction, I would say. When we are state universities, or when we are, let's say, up to a certain extent protected by the market, we can adapt and react with an okay tempo. I'm discussing with some of my colleagues in private schools right now. The challenge is very tough because the situation is very critical, let's say, from an economical point of view. Lucky enough, in some environment, we say, okay, we've got to adapt. We know that the future won't be the same, but we've got time for us, and we will be able to make the best out of previous, past, and the potential of technology in our education. And this is what we are experiencing right now. And the teachers are looking for their new balance. I would say they are experiencing right now a new teaching approach. They find their new balance using LMS platform, just like Moodle, or online tools, just like those ones. I would say they feel more comfortable, I would say, right now. They adapt to this environment, but they are still searching for the new balance. And I would say this is the same for our students.
That's actually a big question, maybe for all of us. How do you think the pedagogy will evolve and in going forward? Because so there's some questions that are coming in about, but universities were built to create interaction, to create contact. Like it's not just a classroom; it's what around it is around it that doesn't really transpire necessarily in the online as we know it. Maybe there is issues like the isolation effect that students might have. I think this is things we are all concerned with and working on from an aspect of developing the pedagogy. What do you think, all of you? What do we think how the pedagogy will evolve basically going forward?
I'll say I think the biggest issue is not thinking about this process as taking an in-person course and just putting it online. It's really thinking about the experience and how to adapt. And I think we will not only learn a lot from the instructors, but also instructional designers. Remember, we have a whole class of professionals who think about this. They have traditionally put more effort, I think, into asynchronous, but now putting it all together, I think they will help administrators and instructors figure out how to engage students in this model of Zoom versus animation and discussion panel. I mean, the fact that they can do that in an asynchronous course is amazing. So I think this is in some ways even easier challenge, but it's also a really exciting one. I mean, I can tell you at Berkeley, we have had students say, I know my instructor, my online instructor better than I did my instructors in person. Now that's rare, but it's possible. And so I think thinking really hard, again, not just about translating from one format to the other, but using the technology and the pedagogy and just taking it to a new place.
Yeah, I will come up with a new perspective speaking about this new pedagogy. In fact, we should bring into our discussion the cultural aspect. In Romania, we are a Latin culture, and we prefer more and more to socialize, to be face-to-face, to be on campus. And as Jean-Michel said, our students appreciate a lot also their life in university campuses, which mean we should bring our students from different regions. And also in future, I am positive that even if we'll have a hybrid model, students will enjoy to come and to spend some collaborative working in our campuses and to deliver projects together in different teams, especially in mixed teams. We try this model with our MBA programs for already 10 years with Jean-Michel, with our students in Bucharest and Paris. And now we also try to extend our program to some other culture. So I think we should also take into account when we design new pedagogy tools and new pedagogy thinking, also our culture, because sure it evolves, but the cultural aspects are to be taken into account. Maybe you conduct some studies also to see which are the preferences of our students and how can we find the best proportion between online courses, asynchronous teaching, and face-to-face teaching, and of course working together in university campus.
Fully agree with you, Doyle. When Sharon is mentioning the link with the, let's say, teachers, professors, you don't open the door, give your course and close the door. You are connected. So this connection is an opportunity to engage, to have a discussion, to talk about what you gain, what you learn, but also to raise questions about your career path and so on. So we can reinforce this link. And even when we are discussing about organizing our study trip for this year, very challenging to say, okay, we will be able to go to California in July 2021. And this is the same for us going to Romania with a group of students. We can look at this event with a kind of an online preparation. If feasible, we will go there and we will visit your place and we will be happy to connect. But if not possible, we will adapt and we will be able to build up teamwork, to have projects, to make virtual online visits of company and so on. And there are opportunities. That's why I'm talking about piloting, experimenting out of it to find what is the next, let's say, what will be the next opportunities in the future.
It's actually quite interesting. It reminds me of things that we are doing where we're just trying to focus on the students mostly and what is most efficient for them. Because if we just assume we are classroom, we just do classroom and that's that. But that might actually not be 100% the best solution. Fully online is one thing, but that's maybe also not the best solution. And so if I take together what you were just describing, it seems that going forward, it's about figuring out, maybe guided by the student needs particularly, what is it that we can offer best. And that might be, for some people, the fully online, maybe even asynchronous. For other people, the hybrid. And the hybrid can be not just part of the course online and part of the course in class, but there might be entire programs that are a big part online, and then they have residential programs, as you just described, Jean-Michel. And then some people that really are looking, and maybe that's dependent also on the subject area, to be really in class. I mean, I think there are examples, labs and so on. You just can't really mix together chemicals or grow cell cultures and petri dishes in virtual environments. I mean, you can simulate it, but yeah.
And the other dimension, as discussed by Dorel, is that we take that as an opportunity to reshape the world and maybe to fix the world up to a certain extent, because a lot of discussion are taking place right now about do we relocate part of our health labs or whatever in Europe a bit differently because we were stuck without the proper products and so on. So the supply chain is being changed, the distribution is being changed. And the other dimension is that even the company don't look at the future the same way. So profit is there, but purpose is very important. And key companies just like Danone and many important companies on the French market, which have a global influence, are revisiting their strategy to adapt their new attitude. And it started much earlier. It started before COVID, of course. But now it's a must go in terms of alignment between what we claim and what we do. And climate change is a reality. Impact of industry, footprint of what we do is a reality. Then we need to do something. So the content of our courses have to adapt. And we've got to revisit what we've been teaching for years in terms of supply chain, business models, vision, and so on, to at least investigate new opportunities of doing business differently. And this is great, let's say, from an academic point of view, because it's not a copy and paste content-wise, it's a new page. And it's something that we've got to revisit and that we've got to design. And we know that the solution is not local. And we know that the solution for many topics is global. So how do we connect? How do we work? How do we educate in order to reshape part of our environment and to fix some of the issues we are facing, not only, of course, from a pandemic point of view, but from, let's say, broadly a business impact point of view. So this is very optimistic, I would say, because it's a huge challenge. And for academic people, it's a great opportunity to write something different.
I can give a little spoiler, maybe to inspire colleagues that might be here from higher education institutions. And it hasn't been revisited yet here locally, but there was several years ago an initiative within the San Francisco Bay Area where all major institutions were thinking of offering a degree that students could take by taking courses from any of the participating institutions. So there were, I think, 4 or 5 different leading universities, sorry, and it didn't work. And one of the reasons is, even though it's in the same area, like you don't want to travel, or you can't travel around an hour, 2 hours from one to the other between classes, basically, to do this. Now, if you reimagine this is actually pretty powerful to think about, that you can offer programs now where you have a consortium of universities working together and students being able to take classes that are mutually recognized, and they can then take classes from the institution or the faculty that they think makes most sense for them. And institutions can be very deliberate in saying, well, this is where we shine. We have this particular strength, and we partner with others that have complementary strengths there. So it's actually quite exciting in terms of design of programs, even if we, as you just said, we go beyond the structure that we usually have. And that's actually maybe going into a topic I thought we can talk about as well, is kind of the strategies of higher education institutions going forward. Maybe then a question to us, to all of us, and to you. What do you think will be the major changes in terms of the strategy that we're going to drive?
Who wants to start? You want me to start? I can say a few words about CNAM. Of course, I'm part of, let's say, the academic team, and we are interacting with management, our provost, and about the vision. This is under construction because there are 2 dimensions. On one side, we take that as an opportunity to build up our local network and to be closer to our audience, because you can learn locally, so you need the touch point, I would say, to be local. And then you can be online up to a certain extent, but you want the social interaction, as mentioned by Dorel. So your network might be a blend of, let's say, social network broadly, but also local network and so on. So on one side, we develop the distribution, I would say, very locally. This is true also from an international standpoint. And on the other side, we need to be more industrial, if I may say it this way. We need to make sure that the back office is strong enough from an IT point of view in order to be robust, to be powerful, to be online, to be efficient, to be safe, to be cyber protected, and so on. So the resources, the central resources, need to be reinforced up to a certain extent. And it's an opportunity, as you mentioned, from an academic point of view, to make sure that you connect with your colleagues, to make sure that you get what's very great in this particular course that you want to integrate. So the blend is under construction, I would say. We are blending what we can do from an academic point of view. And behind that, the business model is a key word, because we know that the economy won't be the same. And we know that we've got to realign our economy, and to also maintain what we mentioned previously, the access to education. because the next few years will be challenging from, let's say, work environment point of view. The crisis will be there. So we need to make sure that we remain affordable and accessible. And one example, we've lowered some of our rates. Our MBA has been is more affordable. It was already very affordable, but we reduce the price in order to make sure that you give access to most of the potential students, I would say.
I guess I'll add to that. Obviously, partnerships, we've all been talking about that, is a big part of how we're going to move forward. And as Frederick mentioned, having areas of specialty that one institution can focus on and partner is really important, not only for content, but I think also for the delivery. What we found so far is, the way that you run an online course in science is very different from the way you run an online course in business. So we can specialize in that aspect as well, and then learn from each other. So I think that's really powerful. And then one thing I think I wanted to mention is, as far as resources go, we're talking about education that is very different from a MOOC. MOOCs are great to get broad information out to the public, but it is a very different animal from what we're all talking about. We have to prove competency, right? If we're really talking about education, whether it's pre-grad or students taking courses for college credit or into graduate school. And I think that makes it a lot more complex, and we need to think about those challenges as we partner as well. Academic integrity standards and things of that nature.
And quality monitoring is key also. How do you monitor the quality of what you, let's say, display, broadcast, and so on, just to make sure that the return on investment is there from a student point of view, but the efficiency in terms of acquisition is there. And it's not easy, and it can go up into details, just like, do we have the camera online when we give the course? When preparing this session, we had a small debate between us about what should be, let's say, the new rule. Should we be all of us online? And of course, not everybody is equal in terms of access to the fiber on broadband and so on. So we don't know exactly what is the proper solution for that, but we are once again piloting for it.
Yeah, if we speak about let's say local strategies for higher education, I think that this pandemic crisis gives us the opportunity to get closer to our students and to our partners, national and international partners. And I totally agree with Sharon. I do not think we'll develop a MOOCs program. We'll go more in, let's say, a customized program. The bachelor program could be the same. Even in Romania, we have some agreements to exchange students and to recognize their mutual recognition. But for master program, and especially for MBA programs, we can deliver content which is more linked to local needs. So in fact, this new teaching paradigm will help us to develop content which is more and more adapted to the clients, to companies' needs, but also to the student needs. And in this respect, I think we can increase the mobility of our students. We can increase their exposure to new situations. We can increase also multicultural teams in working in different projects. So all in all, I think that we have a different range of opportunities we can use in coming years in order to have a proper academic offer for our students. So I'm quite optimistic regarding the strategy for coming years for higher education. As Jean-Michel said, it's a completely new picture. We should just revisit what we did before. We should just revisit what are the best strategies for companies and try to work together to develop the best design for our courses.
What's very complex, Dorel, from my point of view, is to find the proper balance between, to make it short, a B2C distribution and a B2B distribution. Because the B2B is very customized depending on, let's say, the company needs, the size of the company, and so on. But this is a great way, let's say, to recruit our students and to make sure that we have the critical size for a particular study track and so on. At the same time, we've got to remain B2C oriented, because people want to move from one to company, and they, at the end of the day, they are their own, let's say, driver of their career path. And we've got to adapt all the broadcast of our programs. So I mean, our CRM platform must be much more powerful. The content must be dynamic. This is a program, this is a menu, and this is what you get to get the degree at the end of one year, of 2 years, and so on. So we've got drastically to adapt, and this transition is a huge challenge in terms of not only academic profile, but also back office support functions in order to be ready for the future. So the closer you are from technology, and this is part of the discussion we had previously discussing with Berkeley team, the Bay Area is obviously a very, let's say, technology-oriented environment. So it's positive, but in many cases, we've got to adapt and find the proper solution with our technology at CNAM, at AC, and so on. And one point that you mentioned also previously is that your brand, AC, Academic Studies, is a well-known brand. It's a very, AC is a very strong brand. So we can capitalize on your brand, on CNAM brand, on other brands, Berkeley, and so on. And this is a new opportunity. But the design of the offer and the distribution has to be reshaped and must be more agile, because you can customize more quickly the program and so on.
It's actually interesting if you think it through. I mean, if you want to be provocative, there are going to probably be, if you, what you were just saying, like with this kind of global stage through online education, if you, there are several categories. If you are an institution that is kind of really world leading and you have the brand that you just alluded to, you are probably now as a strategy engaging in kind of a arms race with the other top institutions of who is going to take the biggest market share globally. Because assuming that people have a good internet connection and so on in places around the world, now everybody can get a degree from a top institution as long as they are academically good enough and they make it through the admissions process. But in theory, they can do that wherever they are. So if that's possible and it's recognized by companies globally, those different brands, then it's just a question of who's going to be the fastest to capture most of these students, because those revenues that you will generate through this will allow you to be that much stronger in marketing and taking the market presence. The bigger question is then for all the institutions that are not in the top world leading or regionally leading, what happens to those institutions when you have students that have the choice? They can go to my local institution and can take online classes there, maybe also some in-person classes, or do like a full online with that other brand. And it's going to be tough, I think, for those institutions as well to figure out how is their place being impacted in the entire system. In the US, you see articles coming out of kind of this monopolization of the higher education industry, where really, I don't know, in 2 decades, there will be, I don't know, 50, 100 big brands, and that's it. And they will eat up the entire market, and everything else would be subsidiaries or local spaces. So it's quite interesting to consider. I don't know if you have seen things on your end that would point toward this already, or what the dynamics are in Europe, notably as well.
If I'm allowed, I think that in fact the speed of transformation is very high, and what you mentioned, Frederic, the fact that we should completely see the new transformation. The biggest challenge is the fact that we should be very agile, and we should do this in a, let's say, high speed. There is no time to wait and see what is happening. We should jump in, and we should try to redesign our business model with our partners. Otherwise, it's a complicated story. So it's a matter of transformation of business model for universities, but also for companies, but also a matter of agility and of speed of delivering hybrid education.
And the coverage will be global, I would say. So I shouldn't take this example, but the airlines are fully down right now. No business, nobody, and so on. But their model is a model of alliances, of partnership in order to cover the world and to make sure that you can fly from Australia to the States and so on. So the future of our business is certainly a matter of alliances, partnership. The consolidation is on the way. Consolidation will take place. And it's a great opportunity for the public institution because they remain affordable. The time is over, or it's very tough for some institution to be still skyrocketing in terms of pricing because the return on investment is not that secure. You can spend a lot of time to pay your studies. So the market will certainly be an affordable market with strong alliances and with strong brands. And the Berkeley is a wonderful brand. CNAM is a long-lasting institution with a wonderful brand, and ASE in Bucharest is also a very strong local brand, I would say. So this is an opportunity for consolidation, for public vision, I would say, and public access, public support to access to education. And so let's be optimistic about that. But the transition phase and the adaptation of the institution is not always that easy, as mentioned by Dorel, who's part of, let's say, the management board of his institution. And we know how complex it is to move and to navigate with academic environment, with back office functions, and so on, and to be ready for the next move, and to be agile at the same time, I would say.
I'd like to add, I think I'm thinking of this from the student perspective, where I think in the future there will be lots of students who want to still go to their local university, even if it is a lesser brand, for that in-person experience that we all acknowledge is still important. But now they'll have the ability to supplement that education with specific courses that their institution would never be able to offer. And so that's another way of looking at a hybrid education. And it's not a partnership in the sense that the two universities have developed a specific program or partnership, but the student can take advantage of different universities to get their education. I think it's much more common today than it was 20, 30 years ago for students to take courses at multiple universities as they go through their education. And so I think that's another model, that it doesn't all have to be spelled out. Students will do this on their own. At Extension or at Berkeley Global, we are open to the public. You don't need to be a matriculated student. So a lot of students come to us just to supplement with specific coursework that we're strong in.
That's actually super interesting, because maybe for the end of our discussion, we can go a little bit into the Q&A, and this ties very much into, I think, Sharon, you just actually gave an answer to several questions. There were questions coming in about, so how complex do you think it is to take an entire course or curriculum online, for example? How long will that take? Didn't ask how much will that cost, but actually, to be honest, that's probably more the answer. It's like the more you pay, the faster it is done. Then there were questions about the difference in technology areas in the world, or institutions might not be equipped with all the media and so on. And funnily enough, what you just explained makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know what you all think about it. Is, well, you don't have to. Like, think about it. If you are looking at spending $200,000 to create an online course or something, or any number, and it'll take you a year, why would you do that if you can literally partner with somebody who has the course and you can bring that into your curriculum?
This is open on our side. This is open, and it's also depending on what is the size of your institution, what is, as mentioned by Dorel, what is the flexibility. But we are learning very fast, I would say. We were forced to be flexible last year. We are still due to be very flexible right now. And once again, the crisis, the economic constraints we're going to have in the near future will have an impact on the economy of our own institution. So we've got to adapt and find the new way to realign, as we mentioned, with the new needs and the new partnership opportunities. So the challenge is very, the change management, this change management topic is very key for us. And it's a big transition we are just about to face. And the other point I can mention is that MOOCs didn't disrupt us, but as mentioned, a resume what you can send to a company to get your job won't be exactly the same in the future. So the modularity of what we teach should be adapted to different needs depending on when you are in your career path. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't have programs just like MBA, which are kind of a refoundation, a consolidation, an integration of your skills, of your experience, a new way to reposition yourself out of, let's say, an extended approach of let's say, an educational journey. But at the same time, we need to be more flexible in terms of certificate, depending on the needs that you may have to go for digital marketing, to go for these particular techniques in accounting or whatever, finance. So the end offer won't have the same structure. And if we don't want to be disrupted by others, we need to find the proper modularity of the offer, which is on the way on our side. Because we are breaking all our courses into modules in what we call bloc de compétences, in order to fit the new, let's say, financing approach we are having, and the structure of our courses are being reshuffled.
It's actually quite interesting. It goes into the direction of a question here that, again, there have been questions about the finance and how this will influence what students do. But there's a question that came into with this perspective that you were alluding to, with us having to rethink also how we structure and finance it. We are all public institutions here, so we have this perspective of educating without having a focus on return on investment with stakeholders or investors in the back. But there is an increasing amount of institutions that actually do, and they are extremely driven and fast in iterating and developing systems, modules, and formats of education online that seem to be very much aligned with what the learners are looking for. But at the end of the day, behind them is investors. There's private money. So what you spend for your education, a big part of it actually does not come back to you as a student. So the question here is like, what is your perspective on the quality of the education, particularly online, given that there will be marketing dollars and a big push from private institutions taking over a lot of the market, but just because the way they are set up, they might not necessarily focus only on the quality of the education.
If I'm allowed, as Jean-Michel said, we should capitalize on our brand image, first of all. We should take into account that all of us are big universities with a certain history behind, and we should be flexible with our educational offer. On the one hand, we have bachelor and master programs, which are for everybody, which have quite a free access, we may say. But on the other hand, we could have customized executive education. And this is, let's say, the way in which we can be, let's say, on a liberal market. And here, in this field of executive education, we should come up with new products and new courses which are completely new and designed together with company and company needs. So in fact, what we need right now in terms of university management, we need agility, we need flexibility, but also we need to ensure some mobility of our offer from one level to another.
And on our side, we need to protect the brand, because just like in other industries, the brand is key. You can trust a brand. So if we are having a lot of partnership with different, let's say, institutions who may support our diploma and so on, we've got to make sure that we check carefully the quality of the partnership, and at the end of the day, that we protect the content of what we deliver from an educational standpoint. And this is an ongoing, this is an important task that we've got to revisit our portfolio of partnership and make sure that content-wise, quality-wise, you can trust the brand, and that you secure the content with values, with, let's say, a proposal linked to what I was talking about previously. You're not only broadcasting techniques, you are also aiming to educate people to be agent in their community, in their company, with a vision and so on. So the brand can be a strong support. When Abbé Grégoire created CNAM, there was a will to make sure that industry could support the development, technology could support the development of the French industry. And it was just after the French Revolution. We are facing a new revolution. Digital revolution was on the way, but COVID is bringing another dimension about reshaping the environment. And we need to make sure that the brand, the Berkeley brand, the AC brand, what we are selling is still part of the value proposition. So we need to protect the brand, I would say. This is a marketing perspective.
And I would just like to add, I think from our experience, in the end, the quality will win. There'll be other competitors on the market that don't have the same quality, but your students will know the difference. They will get jobs, they will get into graduate school, and that in the end, in our experience, is what will make a program successful online. So I think it takes care of itself. And so if educators and companies and universities think of the student in mind, that will always be the right answer in the end. Whether it's academic integrity, content, flexibility to have current content, that will, to me, take care of itself.
I would just add to what Sharon said. I was speaking about this transformation, which should also not be disruptive for the organizational employees, let's say for the universities, because we spoke about the students, we spoke about partners, about consortium of universities, but this process of transformation should also take into account the organizational culture. Each and every one has its own organizational culture for the universities. And sometimes when you do this change, if it's dramatic change, if it is disruptive, sometimes people will not follow you in this transformation. So this is another challenge we face starting March 2020 in our universities, I think. We face the same issue.
Because the good news also is that we are not selling a basic product. We are selling something which is major. How do you transform yourself to be strong enough to find your job, to be an agent in your once again in your community, in your society? And look at Sharon. We can see that your degree from Boston is in your office, correct? You have your degree in your bag. This is part of your ADN. This is part of your. I do have my Berkeley degree in my office, and this is part of my let's say construction. You understand what I mean? So that's why we need to make sure that our institutions, which are long lasting, are strong enough, are being protected, and that they build up, they capitalize on their assets in order to be ready for the next move.
I actually just realized, talking about the financials, that that might be a tough time for the United States and other countries where you have very high tuition fees in the future, as soon as people figure out they can get a very high level degree from a European or other, like can be an Asian or Latin American institution for a fraction of the tuition fees. So I think we need to be on the lookout on our side.
Let's be creative, isn't it?
What is interesting
on your products. It's an opportunity.
What is interesting for you all, then, you are sponsoring the tuition fees as institutions. Imagine now you have thousands and hundreds of thousands of students starting to take the full online programs, like the bachelor's and master degrees in Europe, for example, that are financed by the local taxpayers. It might be a thing that will push your education systems to rethink themselves and the financing system, because there's a lot of people who might just actually be smart enough to use that fact that it's subsidized. But it's a very interesting thing. I don't want to trail off with this. I think we're already running close on time, so maybe we can do some conclusion, and each one of you can take a kind of a takeaway that you would want to give to our listeners in this perspective of what does this new online higher education look like in this controversy with the assets that we have in class, many advantages and the traditional system that people are longing for, and yet the many opportunities that we have online. What would be your respective takeaways to kind of conclude the panel?
Sharon?
I will say, I think the takeaway is just that there are so many options available. We're not restricted at all. This has really opened up so much for us. We can go back to in person, and that worked well. We can go back to the traditional online, that worked well. But now there's this whole space in between. And then considering the official partnerships we can forge, the way individual students can create their own experience by open access, I think there's just so much to look forward to.
In my opinion, I think it's the best moment to be closer to our students, and it's a best moment to change the way we address their needs and also our partners and companies' needs. And it's a good period to try also to reinvent a little bit ourselves, because there is an effort which institution is doing, students is doing, but also which professors should do in order to update their knowledge. So let's revisit what we are doing. Let's see some other ways we can have in view in delivering our content, and everything will be okay. So this is what I take from this meeting.
Frederic, the takeaway on my side is that we can be optimistic, because out of such a discussion, we can realize that we create something, we build up something, we share some element of vision. And so this is good, because we take notes and we are writing our new, let's say, action plan to do something and to find new ways to be there in a few years. And the other dimension is that, let's say, the pleasure, the interest to connect is showing us that the inspiration is not only local. The inspiration can come from different places of the world. We've been inspired by business ways, marketing ways coming from the US, but we also are inspired by other dimensions, as you mentioned, by the way we do things in Europe and so on. And if we can balance our ego and say, okay, let's work together and find solution and fix it, then it's a wonderful optimistic conclusion on my side. And it's a wonderful takeaway.
It's actually, it's great from taking all of it together. I'm a little bit of a history buff, so I see it from this really, we have a 1,000-year tradition as universities to bring faculty professors to our place to educate the local students. And with all we have discussed today and all your input, it really seems that COVID has shifted the paradigm and opened doors to change that into another perspective. So also to questions from the audience, and thank you very much for engaging with us with the panel through your questions. My takeaway from all I've heard today is don't stay like within your little local environment and try to do it on your own. One of the great opportunities of online is not just online education, it's online collaboration, it's online teaching. As a student, you can choose courses, as Sharon described, from any type of institution. As an institution, you can work with partners and collaborate. If you don't have it, somebody else might have it. If you don't know how to do something, maybe another colleague has an idea how to do it. So I think it's really interesting. Through having to stay at home, we have really become more international, or opened more doors actually for collaboration. So I think it's a wonderful takeaway indeed at the end of this panel discussion. And Jean-Michel, do you want to close us out?
Yeah, this is I guess it's a senior position that you give me each time to make the conclusion and to not do a wrap up. I never do a wrap up. I just say thank you to everybody. One more word is that takeaway is that our environment is fragile. Our discussion are fragile. The Q&A session, the discussion can be fragile too. So we need protection up to a certain extent. But we will build up, let's say, a safer world, hopefully, and a more democratic world up to a certain extent. So this is the end of this session. I want to very warmly thank our panelists, our partners. We are very proud of the existing partnership we do have with Berkeley Extension, and we, of course, with ACE for years, with Bucharest Business School. We will do the announcements of the next session in the near future. We will have certainly another session by the end of March. Videos will be available very soon to replay. There will be certainly a questionnaire after this session, so feel free to fill up the question for us to improve. And once again, a warm thanks for the audience. We were having something like 300 people online for this session, which is great. And see you soon in the near future with a vaccine. I guess I need a vaccine to move and to go back to your places. Okay.
We still hope we will be traveling.
Yeah. See you soon and take good care.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Take care, all of you.